Cowboys players wanted to show unity, but they were very adamant about wanting to separate that message from the national anthem. Sean?
All right, Lisa, and as they take a knee collectively, boos can be heard from this sellout crowd in Arizona.
Can we sit up here and say that I'm trying to make a difference? And can we sit up here and say that I can look myself in the mirror and say that I want the best for the American people? Because the people run this country, not one individual, and damn sure not him.
Like, to me, you're a clown. Like, that's unacceptable. Like, that's not what a leader does. Like, your job is supposed to bring everybody together, and everybody in the world feels like since you got in office that hasn't been the case.
You know, our country's an embarrassment in the world, so you got a choice. We can continue to bounce our heads off the wall with his conduct, or we can decide that the institutions of our country are more important, that people are more important, that the decent America that we all thought we had and want is more important, and get down to business at the grassroots level and do what we have to do.
The sports world responding with their actions and words to President Trump's comments. And here is the latest cover of Sports Illustrated. And joining us now, Stephen Cannella, executive editor of Sports Illustrated, along with Robin Lundberg here, of course. So describe what the goals were behind this magazine.
Well, this was an incredible weekend in sports, an incredible weekend for the country, and a historic weekend for both sports and the country. And what we wanted to capture with this cover was, yes, the news of the weekend. Yes, this was a weekend of division in many ways, but I think we thought the enduring message of what we saw, especially on Sunday in the NFL, was this sense of unity. And we're not pretending everything is solved. We're not pretending that sports has it licked. But I think what we saw in various ways, especially across the NFL on Sunday, but across all of sports with some of the comments we just saw, is the way the sports world is coming together. And I think the sports world is acknowledging they're not perfect. There are a lot of issues underlying everything, but we have to work through those issues. And this image of athletes of all races, of all colors, of all sports, linking arms and standing together and saying, we want to figure this out, but we're going to stand united as we do it. That, to me, was the enduring message of this weekend.
Yeah, of course, like many of the covers that we've put out over the years, not without some criticism, seeing some things on Twitter. And let's talk about one of them. First, people are wondering, why not have Colin Kaepernick on the cover? What went into that decision?
Well, in some ways, even though his picture's not there, Colin Kaepernick is there. I think we all know that. Colin Kaepernick was, for lack of a better word, was looming over everything that happened this past weekend and looms over many issues in society right now. I thought what we were trying to capture with this cover was the way new voices emerged this weekend and the way this debate, this issue, this protest movement has sort of evolved even beyond Colin Kaepernick. He's the guy who started it all. I think we saw a lot more people in various ways sort of join the movement, for lack of a better term, this weekend. That's what we were trying to capture with this cover. Colin Kaepernick is on that cover, even if his face isn't and his name aren't there. We all know who stands behind this movement. We all know who got it started. Colin Kaepernick has many more brothers today than he did a week ago.
Another common comment was about Roger Goodell and his placement on the cover. Some people thought the NFL's initial statement was not strong enough. Why include Goodell and why in the front?
Right. I mean, to me, Goodell is a symbol in some ways for the entire league, for better or worse. Roger Goodell is the NFL. He represents the shield. And look, I know there was a lot of debate over how strong his statement was. Honestly, to me, in the moment when I first read it, I was a little bit surprised. Maybe my expectations for what Roger Goodell will do in situations like this are a little low. I thought he came out fairly strongly, or stronger than I expected anyway. So, you know, for all these people on the cover, this is not necessarily a traditional cover in that we're lauding you for a championship or anything. This is just a statement about the way people have come together. I think it's pretty clear which side of the issue Roger Goodell stood on Friday and over the weekend in response to President Trump's critics. Whether you like it, whether you think he came out strongly enough or not, I think it's pretty clear where he and most of the league stand, and that's why he's there representing not just him, but all of ownership. I mean, the other thing is, the ironic thing about what President Trump did, he was talking about, you know, divisions in our country, divisions in the sport. In some ways, in a weird way, he brought owners and players in the NFL together more than they have been on any issue in a long time. That's one small ironic twist to all of this.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the tweets that President Trump sent this morning, but you saw Jerry Jones kneeling last night in Arizona. Did you think that was significant?
It was significant in that you see an owner trying to get involved in this protest. I think it was significant in that it also showed, I don't care who you are, owner, player, and we saw this from lots of guys across the NFL and across sports. There's a lot of conflict over, I want to be part of this, but I don't know the right way to be a part of it. And I think what we saw Jerry Jones and the Cowboys do last night, kneeling as a team, but before the anthem was played and then standing for the anthem. Look, there are two ways you can look at it. Are they trying to have their cake and eat it too? Possibly. Are they also trying to dip their toes into waters that they're not exactly sure how they should dive in fully just yet? It's really hard to criticize anybody who gets involved at any level in this. It's a hard decision to make, and it's really not up to any of us to decide exactly how someone should do it. So
I'll say this, I didn't expect to see that from Jerry Jones. And to me, taking the knee is a little bit more symbolic significantly than simply locking arms. And
I think the other thing is lots of people have said this, I'm not the first person to say this, but the anthem itself, the protest during the anthem itself, it's such a lightning rod. And there are very good arguments to be made for the people who are protesting during the anthem. They're not protesting the anthem itself. They're not coming out against our military. That's a nuance that I happen to agree with, but I do think that a lot of people lose that. So if Jerry Jones wants to make a statement, but he knows most of his audience, most of his core audience is going to take kneeling during the anthem a certain way, even if he doesn't mean it that way, he does have to look for other ways to make a statement. I think he took a step toward that last night.
Yeah, let's keep talking about the team aspect of this, shall we, before we go to the broader picture and stuff, and talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers, because, you know, they really didn't seem to be all on the same page when you had Mike Tomlin essentially telling us that they wanted to all stay in the locker room because there were a lot of very passionate feelings on both sides. And then, of course, Alejandro Villanueva comes out. We were not expecting, though, for him to say that he was actually embarrassed by what happened. And I believe we have some sound from Villanueva.
I would say that my personal thoughts about the situation is that regardless of this plan, very few players knew that I was going to the tunnel because I only asked the team leadership. And so because of that, I didn't give them an opportunity to stand with me during the national anthem. That is the very embarrassing part on my end and what transpires, because when everybody sees an image of me standing by myself, everybody thinks that the team and the Steelers are not behind me, and that's absolutely wrong. It's quite the opposite, as they all would have, actually the entire team would have been out there with me. Even the ones that wanted to take a knee would have been there with me had they known these extreme circumstances that at Soldier Field, you know, at the heat of the moment when I got soldiers, wounded veterans texting me that, you know, that I have to be out there, then I think everything would have been put aside.
Ben Roethlisberger also released a statement saying, in part, I was unable to sleep last night and want to share my thoughts and feelings on our team's decision to remain in the tunnel for the national anthem yesterday. The idea was to be unified as a team when so much attention is paid to things dividing our country, but I wish we approached it differently. We did not want to appear divided on the sideline with some standing and some kneeling or sitting. As a team, it was not a protest of the flag or the anthem. I personally don't believe the anthem is ever the time to make any type of protest. For me and many others on my team and around the league, it is a tribute to those who commit to serve and protect our country, was part of that statement. Now, this is the sports side of it, right? Because the Steelers, you could say, perhaps have an issue where Mike Tomlin felt it necessary to not put anyone in a position to have to make a choice whether to kneel or stand for the anthem. And then you had Villanueva and Roethlisberger come out publicly saying they weren't comfortable with how everything went down.
Look, a football team like America is an unruly bunch, and you have lots of people from lots of different walks of life, lots of different political points of view, and they really didn't have a lot of time to figure out how to address this on Sunday when you think about it. I mean, this news broke late Friday night with some of the things President Trump said at a speech at a rally. These are decisions being made on the fly, and it's the Seahawks. We have a piece in the magazine. Robert Klumko had a great piece on our website yesterday. The Seahawks were divided too. They had a long discussion the night before. How should they address this? I think teams are figuring this out on the fly. I don't know that the Steelers' division is as much as, to me, Villanueva's statement yesterday was not him saying, you know, I think he was trying to create more unity and trying to make it clear to the world, hey, our team is united. I think Roethlisberger, in some ways, you read between the lines, he's saying the same thing. I think it was a key moment on Sunday. They put team unity ahead of maybe their individual feelings and individual statements they felt like needed to be made. That was the most important thing on Sunday.
Well, unlike the NFL, it doesn't seem to be much division on issues in the NBA, as many players have been very direct with comments, including Sixers guard J.J. Redick, who told us this.
There's very few days that go by where I don't get pissed off at something Trump does. So this weekend was kind of like a normal thing. I mean, like, I try to take myself out of it and like look at it like helicopter view and be like, holy shit, like the president just called NFL players sons of bitches. Holy shit, like he's bad-mouthing Steph Curry. Like, I tried to do that and it was still like all a little too surreal. I also am not sure that he understands the definition of the word privilege, which that was probably the thing that bothered me the most out of all the comments that he made this weekend. But in the grand scheme of things, of all the comments that he's sort of made and all the things that he's sort of done, I mean, where does his comments this weekend fit in? Like 87? Like it's not that big of a deal considering all the other stuff he's done.
Yeah, there's already enough problems. So if the Sixers ever win an NBA title, would you want to go to the White House?
If Trump was in the house, no, I wouldn't even consider it. And I also don't agree with like Adam Silver and Steve Kerr's like there's nothing that I would ever want to say to Trump or interact with Trump. I agree with LeBron in the sense that, you know, what the White House and what the presidency used to represent does not represent that during these 4 years. It just does not. It's now a mockery of what the presidency and the White House stood for. So I would have zero interest in ever going there.
Given the talk from NBA players, do you expect to see protests there when the season starts?
I do. I mean, we've seen protests in the NBA already, going back a few years, going back to the I Can't Breathe T-shirts and things like that. Yes, we're going to see more. I mean, the NBA has, in many ways, is the most progressive, the most outspoken of the leagues right now. We're going to see more protests. We're going to see kneeling during the anthem. We're going to see more players speaking out the way J.J. Redick just did. And I think the interesting thing in the NBA, I mean, if the NFL is trying to figure out how to be unified with a lot of different points of view, the NBA is going to be figuring out how to be unified with many different degrees of an extreme point of view that's very anti-Trump, very pro Colin Kaepernick, things like that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure we'll see the protests as widespread in the NBA because I think people know or at least have a sense where NBA players stand. In the NFL, there's been a bit of an association with Trump, with owners donating, and of course, with his tweets right now. When LeBron James is publicly calling him a bum, and when Steph Curry is saying, I don't want to go to the White House, those are the spokesmen in a sense for the NBA. So I think at least when it comes to him, that league has kind of made its feelings clear, and there's not that association like there is with the NFL.
I just also wonder if they would actually kneel, considering just how much that's been politicized at this point. If maybe there is another way, maybe it's not during the anthem, maybe it's someplace else that, you know, this will continue. I think it also will continue. I'm just not sure what it's going to look like. Would it be more T-shirts? Would it be some other symbolic way? Because I'm not sure if kneeling now has so much heat on it that perhaps they'd want to make it more about what they're kneeling for than the actual act of kneeling, which I think has gotten lost, quite frankly, in a lot of what the NFL players are doing. Stephen Cannella, thank you so much for being with us, executive editor of Sports Illustrated. We're going to be back with Ron Darling in just a moment, talk a little baseball and MLB playoffs. But first, of course, the fantasy football season rolls on. Here is Corey Parson on your fantasy waiver wire.
Hey, what's up? It's Corey Parson, the fantasy executive with your SI Now Week 4 fantasy football pickups. Let's start at the quarterback position. I've already told you once to go scoop up Cleveland Brown quarterback DeShone Kizer. The Browns will play with a negative game script all season, meaning most games, Kizer will throw the football at least 30 times. That kind of volume, mixed with his rushing upside, will have Kizer as a borderline QB1 every week. Running back that should be picked up is DC running back Chris Thompson. Thompson has only touched the football 24 times this season, yet he has 4 touchdowns. That type of production cannot be sustained, but you can't just leave this type of game-breaking talent on the waiver wire. Don't let this year's Tyreek Hill sit on the waiver wire. With the bye weeks getting closer, another wide receiver you should pick up is Travis Benjamin of the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers offense is top 6 in the NFL in passing attempts. Phil Rivers throws the football an average of 37 times a game. Keenan Allen can't catch all those targets. Travis Benjamin is on the waiver wire in your league. Down in Atlanta, Mohamed Sanu, the number 2 wide receiver in the Falcons offense. Quarterback Matt Ryan spreads the ball to the open receiver. Although Julio Jones, one of the best players in the NFL, is the top target in that passing game, Sanu will get his. If you need tight end help, try Charles. His mama named him Clay. I'ma call him Clay. The Bills tight end has 13 receptions on 18 targets and 2 touchdowns on the young season. Clay could be the top option in the Buffalo Bills passing game. Now, that's not saying much, but he does have a familiarity with Bills quarterback Tyrod Taylor. With tight ends being banged up around the league, Charles Clay is the guy that can finish the tight end 1 just about every single week. And those are your Week 4 fantasy football pickups. I'm the fantasy executive, Corey Parson.
Let's move to baseball, shall we? TBS will have exclusive coverage of this year's National League postseason, beginning with the wild card game on October 4th. We now welcome in World Series champion, analyst for MLB on TBS, Ron Darling is here. And, you know, we will talk actual baseball in just a moment, but now you've seen with Bruce Maxwell, the first player to take a knee. He did it after President Trump's comments in Alabama on Friday. Do you think we're going to see this continue into the baseball postseason?
Well, I applaud Bruce. I think that's a very difficult stance to take. I applaud the Oakland A's fans for really backing him because I'm sure he's taken a lot of social media hits. Is it going to happen in baseball? I found it interesting that Chris Archer said that the culture of his clubhouse wouldn't really allow him to feel like he could go out there and be himself and silently protest in whatever way he decided to. I've always found clubhouses to be like that. Very conservative. I'm talking about baseball now. Very conservative within the clubhouses and always feel as though you have to do more fitting in than sticking out. And that's always been the case.
Is that troubling, though, especially in these times where it feels like so much is at stake?
I think it's really troubling. I think that what I find interesting about the football players, and I think they've done a great job of unifying, but I think what's more important about this is that there's no need to unify at all. I mean, really, it's how you feel about the situation. So I understand as a team you're trying to come together, but as far as protesting, it's everyone's silent kind of, or not silent, of way of being. That's all, and that's how they should probably react to it. And I always think of, I don't know if you guys feel this way, and I don't know if Bruce feels this way. I'm sure he doesn't, but just the history of kneeling, right? It's succumbing, you know, at some point. That's how it feels like to me. So stand tall, stand proud, voice your opinion.
Yeah, Eric Reed, who knelt with Colin Kaepernick, wrote in the New York Times this week, they thought it akin to an American flag being at half-mast, and that would be what the kneeling was representing.
What you said about the clubhouse is interesting to me because you were talking to us about speaking from your gut and what you believe in, and if there is a pressure not to do so. We do live in unique times right now. How many players do you think are going through that internal struggle because morally they feel the need to speak up, but they don't want to deal with backlash from teammates, fans, or what have you?
It's a great question. I think hundreds and hundreds of, and if you take all of sports, thousands, because we know what the culture is out there. We know what can happen to you on social media if you're not you know, there's two sides. There's no in between anymore. You know, there's no let's talk and find something that'll help us both out. It's either you're on my side or you're on the other side. And I think that is a very difficult place to be for not only an athlete, any citizen that wants to feel or voice their opinion.
Yeah, I find it just a little ironic, though, just because it seems like baseball has been the grounds for so many moments in our history when it comes to social justice. I mean, perhaps one of the most iconic moments is Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier, yet right now it doesn't seem like baseball is leading the way on that front.
Well, think about it this way. I mean, they had to break the color barrier.
Sure.
So, you know, a guy like Babe Ruth never played against some of the greatest athletes that this land had. So that they did it, I think, is one of the greatest moments in baseball history. But at the same time, it had to be broken at some point. So there was a thought that went around with the owners at some point that they want to exclude certain players. So you have to remember all of that history as you're trying to put all of this into perspective.
Meanwhile, on the field, Aaron Judge broke the rookie home run record, passing Mark McGwire. That makes him our adrenaline performer, presented by Toyota. Let's go places.
Let's do it.
Judge hit his 49th and 50th home runs against the Royals, passing McGwire's rookie mark of 49. Ruth, Mantle, Maris, and A-Rod are the only other Yankees to hit 50 in a season. Ron, do you think his name, Aaron Judge that is, will eventually be mentioned with those players in terms of all-time great Yankees?
You know, he really has a chance. You know, I think what happens with Aaron is that we overlook all of the other stats about him because of his home run record. 50 is an amazing record, and I don't want to discount it. But he's much more than that. You know, runs scored, RBIs, his defensive play, his arm. He is a complete package, this player. So I think the sky's the limit for Aaron. And it's nice, since I live in this town, to get to see him watch him play all the time.
Yeah, meanwhile, another slugger, Giancarlo Stanton, having the best offensive season of his career, but he has a lot of competition for National League MVP. Do you think he'll win it? Are the home runs enough?
Well, I don't know. The home runs usually aren't enough. It takes a little more. Sometimes playing on a winning team really helps your chances. But I'll have to say, in all the games that I've played and the thousands of games that I've done broadcasting, I've never seen a player like Stanton. I've never seen anyone hit the ball like he hits it. People that I've seen in the past hit line drives like he's hit, become doubles in the gap, and his balls just keep going and going and going, sort of like a 2-iron.
So do you think he should win MVP?
I think he will not win MVP. Should he win the MVP? I think there's 3 or 4 choices. There's Goldschmidt, J.D. Martinez, Blackmon, Arenado, and Stanton. Those are the 5 guys.
It's a really crowded field, as I said. Meanwhile, Derek Jeter, new Marlins ownership. They're already making a lot of changes. What do you think the plan is for Stanton?
That's an interesting question because he has so much left on his contract. If you were to acquire him now, he has to opt out of his contract in 3 years, so that's what you'd be acquiring him for. Boy, he'd be very attractive. He's the kind of guy that if you did trade, you could get 5, 6, 7 maybe players that could help your franchise. But I don't know, it'd be a disservice to the Miami fans, to me, to get rid of right now the greatest slugger in the game.
Of course. What do you think about World Series pick while we have you here?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Cleveland and Chicago back in there. Chicago Cubs are playing their best baseball, and Cleveland's been, I think, over the course of 6 months. Now, the Dodgers were great, over 50 games, 43-7. But the course of 6 months, the Cleveland Indians have been the best team in baseball.
That's fantastic. Ron Darling, where can you find them? MLB on TBS. That's where they are, the exclusive home for the 2017 National League postseason. Always love your commentary, Ron. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, guys.
Really appreciate that. Well, with so much going on, you might have forgotten, of course, that we have some basketball to talk about, right? It was Media Days kicking off in the NBA. We want to talk on the court stuff. We're going to do that now. Here's a look at what happened yesterday at Media Day on the court.
Russ, you've had multiple players come out. I'm sorry, I'm so nervous. Let me come back.
We just saw him up here a little bit ago. Something about him seems reinvigorated. He even said that. What's he been like this summer?
A jerk. Honestly, he's a jerk because he calls me at 6:30 in the morning and asks me what I'm doing. Obviously, I'm asleep.
How do you feel about, starting at the 4, or the concept of starting at the 4, or even coming off the bench? And the second question is...
Well, me?
Oh.
Hey, P, they said I got to come off the bench.
What kind of pressure will he have, and what advice do you have for him that you would like to tell him?
No, I don't have any advice for him now. I got no advice for him or any other people that's on any other team. Even if my son went to another team and we was playing against each other, I'm not giving him. He'd come home and eat dinner or something, but he'd get no advice from me.
How does it feel going from being Russell Westbrook, the basketball player for the past 9-10 years, to being Russell Westbrook, the fashion icon, the fashion maven for the past month?
Past month?
I mean, you've been big time for the past month.
Where you been at? Man, look, it's been great. I had a book come out, so that's been a great experience. But I wouldn't say that just started a month ago.
Okay, most revealing moment from the Monday's Media Days in terms of on-the-court stuff was what?
I think it was LeBron James in general. Of course, we know what he said about the off-the-court stuff, but on the court, the way he referenced Kyrie Irving as kid a lot, I think was intentional. I think LeBron was hurt by what happened, and I also sensed some motivation. When you get to that level, you have to find something, right? We always see guys looking for slights. And when you've accomplished everything LeBron has, including winning that championship for Cleveland, for him to find a new motivation post-Kyrie is probably a good bet for him to win the MVP and to come out of the East again. And also in his press conference, sort of lost in the shuffle because all the craziness, he said that he hasn't changed his plans as far as staying in Cleveland. So that was at least an indication that he would prefer to stay in Cleveland. He wouldn't commit definitively, of course, but more concrete than we've seen.
I would say, following up on Cleveland, I thought what was most interesting is that the team came out and said Isaiah Thomas is not going to be back until January. And I'm not sure if that's them being very conservative and maybe he'll be back before, or maybe they're just being wishful and he won't be back until after the All-Star break. I thought that was interesting. But my most interesting above that is Oklahoma City. And you see Carmelo Anthony already getting questions out, are you going to come off the bench? And he goes, who, me? No, I'm not coming off the bench. And I think the Oklahoma City Thunder are the most interesting team in the NBA this year, and I think it's bar none, because you have Russell Westbrook, the reigning MVP, and someone who loves to have the ball in his hands. You have Carmelo Anthony, who still believes, I'm sure, and is one of the best scorers in the league, coming off a situation feels unfulfilled in New York, and of course, now going to be wearing the hoodie from here on out. And then you have Paul George, and who is also so incredibly talented, and the fact that George can leave after the season, the fact that Westbrook has not signed the extension, the fact that Carmelo Anthony, after another year, could then potentially opt out, although he'd be giving up on a lot of money. How are they going to make this work? And can they make it work? And the bar is set so high for them. Can they make it work in the first season? I think one other very just funny aside that Melo said at Media Day, he said, really it was Paul George and it was Westbrook were the main reasons he came to Oklahoma City. It's like, what was the other? The nightlife? I mean, those are the only reasons you're coming to Oklahoma City, right?
Think about all of the moving parts from this past offseason. Not only was it a great NBA offseason, I would say it was the best offseason in the history of sports.
Ooh, I don't know if I can go that far. I have to think about it a little bit. But so far, things are setting up to be really, really exciting in the NBA on the court, off the court, as well as we're going to continue those conversations, I'm sure. Thank you so much for watching SI Now today. We'll be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern or thereabouts. You can always hit us up on our Twitter handle at SI Now Live. We want to hear what you're thinking, and we're posting clips there right after the show. Of course, keep it locked to SI.com for all the latest news and headlines. See ya.